Welcome to MMT Chats. This episode is brought to you by ISCAR with new ideas for machining intelligently. Hey MMT followers, I'm Christina Fuges, Editorial Director with MoldMaking Technology, and my guests today on this MMT Chat are all from TK Mold and Engineering in Romeo, Michigan. President Tom Barr, Johnny Salter, who is a mold designer, and Nick Baines, who is an apprentice, who right now is primarily focused on CMM. And they are here to talk about their experience with mentoring through the American Mold Builders Association Emerging Leaders Program. And it's actually called, I think, Meet a Mentor is part of the Emerging Leaders. So we're going to get into that. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit to Tom and let viewers in on who TK Mold is. So Tom, can you share kind of a brief snapshot of the company, location, size, give us a nice background of who TK Mold is.
Yeah, so thanks, Christina. We're glad to be here. So I started TK Mold back in 2003. As you mentioned, we're up in Romeo, Michigan, which is about an hour northeast of Detroit. We have 24 employees. We have 16,000 square foot building. Out of those 24 employees, 10 of our employees are under 30. 8 of those employees are current apprentices in our apprenticeship program. We have 10, as I mentioned, and the other 2 had graduated a year and a half ago. So
mentoring is a big topic nowadays in terms of company culture. So Tom, why don't you first get into how you define what a mentor is, or how do you define mentoring? And then I want to ask Nick and Johnny the same question.
To me, my perception of what a mentor is that, we guide, motivate, and inspire people to become their best self they can be. So we're not only teachers, but we coach, and we're also teaching life skills along the way. So to me, that's what mentoring is.
Okay, so Johnny, give me your take. And it's okay if you're repetitive. I just want to kind of get different perspectives.
Yeah, so a mentor, in my own words, is someone that helps guide a younger or less experienced person with giving guidance or positive lessons. This person is dependable and engaged on topics that are needed to achieve a goal. For us in mold building, there are many advantages of learning from someone who has had experience of figuring out what works and why. Where in a field like mold building, we do many things from setups to designing to programming. And when you have someone that's experienced in doing these things, it definitely helps us reach our goal of being better as a company, and each individual person getting better at by themselves too.
I like that. A key point too is, which I'm learning, is mentoring is really not just the young person learning from the old person, to put it bluntly. It's really this two-way street, which I think is a recurring theme that keeps coming up in my discussions about mentoring. So Nick, how do you feel about it? How do you define a mentor or mentoring?
To me, mentor is more than just someone who teaches or gives advice to someone who is less experienced. A mentor is someone who I feel is passionate about what they do, someone who has an eagerness to share the wealth of knowledge that they've acquired over the years. And a good mentor to me would be someone who gets as excited to share their skills and pass it down to the next generation, just like as they were when they were younger and being taught those same things. And I feel like that excitement needs to go both ways. I feel like an apprentice should feel just as excited and eager to learn as the mentor is to teach.
I like that. And Tom, I liked what you said earlier too. And this is a phrase you hear a lot too. It's about the whole person, the whole employee. So it's not just what is going on with that person within the shop, but you got to care about them outside the shop too, because if you want a happy person inside the shop, they got to be happy, right? And fulfilled outside the shop.
Yeah, and I agree too. And Christina, thinking back, and it's interesting as Nick pointed out that, you want to be as inspired by someone that was and have that inspiration that you had when you were younger too, and pass that back down. So that's important too, because I think back in the late 80s when I first started, it was not like that. It was like, do your thing, move on, get home, I think we have to be different today, and I think we are being different. So mentoring is a huge benefit to bringing on the next generation here.
All right, good segue. So you're talking about bringing in the next generation. We talked prior a little bit ago, and I wanted you to talk a little bit, Tom, about how you got to this point, because I know we talked about, you had a story about an EDM class that you took, and it sounded like that's what kind of spurred you into reaching out beyond the shop to kind of cultivate that next generation by hooking up with that local community college. So can you take us back to that EDM class that you took?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so I was in the market for a new EDM machine, and I knew there's our current situation at the time with older technology. I understood at Macomb Community College they had a professor that was an applications engineer with one of the local EDM supply houses, and I heard it was a great class, so I signed up for the class along with I brought in another one of our young people here. And so we actually both got the last 2 spots in the class, which was kind of interesting. So walked into class and I looked around, and I'd say 90% of the class was, I'm going to say, the 30 and under crowd. And I was really, really impressed, and I thought about it, and I went home, talked to Krista about it, who's very active here at TK, and I went back to the college that next week before class, and I went down to the apprenticeship coordinator's office, which was a place where I had gone to serve my apprenticeship. So going full circle here, now here I am walking in as a owner of a company and somebody that wants to start this apprenticeship program. So I actually started talking to her, and we put together a program based off their base curriculum, and then we also added classes that we wanted, and then we found out you could take it a step further and get the U.S. Department of Labor involved, which brings a whole other level to it. So yeah, for us, it's been great. So taking it from that first interaction to where we are today, I tapped, like I said, Krista on the shoulder. She's a social worker by trade. She's really more of a clinical social worker. So she actually took this and ran with it and met with a lot of people to get this taken care of. And she meets with the apprentices. She meets with them, I don't know, once a month or so, just to see how they're doing and stay in contact with everybody and the teachers. But yeah, so that was super important for us to get involved in. And again, to me, when you're looking for this next generation, you have to do things that are a little different. Maybe you got to get out of your shop, out of your office or whatever, and go to these places where you can find them. We are fortunate, Christina, here in Detroit area. Yes, we do have Macomb Community College that has a apprenticeship program that, again, I went to back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Stop dating yourself.
I know. Doesn't like the 80s. So, but yeah, so a lot of these guys, what's interesting for us too, and just to take it another step further, the two, Nick and Johnny, who are on this call as well, they both not only are Johnny's graduated from the apprenticeship program and Nick's in it, but both of them have their bachelor's degrees from Oakland University. So both these two even went a step further. They both had those degrees before they got in our program. So to me, there's all different types of people out there, walks of life, that would really love to and thrive in manufacturing. But again, you have to go out there and you have to get them, and you have to set up a program that's going to be beneficial not only for them, but it's also beneficial for TK Mold. So we, as a company, we benefit from it too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think how you stand out also, not only did you put yourself in the school environment to see what was happening with the younger generation, you actually have someone that's a champion for that within TK Mold, which I think is key. And a lot of shops don't do that. So having Krista being someone that's actually sounds like it's in her nature, right? The people side of the business, and being able to champion that is critical. I do think separate conversation I'm going to have with Nick and Johnny, because I think I'm glad that you said that about the degrees, because no one's out there saying, don't go to college. It's really just saying there's another option if you don't want to go to college. Right? So but I think your perspective could be an interesting separate conversation, guys. So I might be following up with you. So tied into the mentorship, we have to talk about leadership. And I know, Tom, you have a good take on how you define true leadership. And I know from, again, when we've spoken before, you have literally put yourself like next to, alongside your apprentices and your team to learn with them. And that example, I think, was it a GD&T class that you took, 11 of you took together. Talk about that.
Yeah, so before I do, I mean, I love telling the story because you don't want to, but I think as an owner and as a leader of any company, you have to lead by example, right? So, you know, to sit there and say, and I hear this all the time, I can't find anybody, You know what? You have to lead and you have to get out there and get after it. So what happened was through our apprenticeship program, we slowly have been getting involved in more dimensional type work. And Krista had revised our curriculum to incorporate a GD&T class. So we had two of the guys take the class, and they actually had trouble getting through it one semester. So it was a combination of things. The teacher was very tough. He was super passionate about GD&T, and nothing was going to slide through the class. So, and then also it's a very difficult subject if you're not familiar with a lot of that stuff. So anyway, I ended up, you know, they had trouble and they had to retake the class. So what I did is I got with Krista and I said, look, I'll take the class. You sign everybody up in this class and all our apprentices, everyone's signing up. And I said, we are all going to take this class together. So it was cool. I mean, there's no doubt this guy was old school. I walk into class. I mean, there were HIPAA laws, everything else were thrown out the window. I mean, this guy was hardcore old school. And so started going through the class. It is a difficult subject, so I would take notes. I would publish our notes that we took on a weekly basis. I would actually bring out real life examples of how GD&T things go through our shop and how what they're learning applies to what TK Mold's doing and what our customers' expectations are. So again, I put myself out there and said, hey, you know what? This could go south real quick. And this could be an issue where people aren't going to make it through. And no, we took it by the bull by the horns and we all got through the class. So again, this goes back to what I think is leadership. I don't do anything I wouldn't ask somebody else to do. And I'm going to be right there with you, you know, leading the charge and being a part of it too. So, you know, I don't run the shop by, you know, proxy or from a distance. You have to be involved in everything that's going on. So
you got to be in it.
That's how that story happened. And you know what, I think that kind of defines how I feel and passionate about what we're doing here. So
I love it. All right. So leadership is a pretty critical component of the American Mold Builders Association. So let's move on over to associations. And Tom, why don't you share how you and TK Mold are involved with the AMBA and why? I think we need to explain to people the importance, again, of getting outside your shop and belonging to groups like this. So talk about the AMBA for a little bit.
Yeah, that's, you know, just a short story. If I ever have a short story, that's unusual, but you know, I'll try and make it short. So short story is I went to an event where none other than Lori Harvard was speaking, and you know, and anybody that's heard Lori speak, I mean, she's got a gift and she captivates you know, the audience, and she's, you know, great speaker, well connected, all that stuff. So I was kind of fired up after I heard her speak. So I went up and talked to her. I introduced myself, and it wasn't a mold making event of any kind. It was like a economics event or something. I forget what it was exactly, a chamber of commerce type thing. And anyway, so I explained who I was, and she said, you know, as a matter of fact, there's a local chapter that in Detroit that we're having a meeting, and she was a part of it at the time too. And so she wants you to attend, you know. So, you know, and that was something that was never really on my radar. I'm thinking, oh, when do I want to go there and sit there and share all my ideas with people that are my competition, all that stuff.
Right.
And you know what? I went, and you know what? I tell you what, you know, you have to be open-minded about things. And actually, it turned out to be great. You know, we a lot of the peers that we were there, and we all have a lot of the same issues. And next generation is one of them, right? So anyway, so longer story longer, I went to the first AMBA conference in Indianapolis with Rick Hecker from Eiffel Tool. We both drove down there, and I tell you what, we just being a part of that, being a part of the motivational speakers, the roundtable discussions, all the stuff that the AMBA puts together to help build yourself as an owner or leader of your company. I mean, it was invaluable. So for us in the AMBA, we're very lucky because we have Troy Nix, Kim Connis, Susan Denzio, and Rachel, and they're terrific leaders of our organization. And one thing I will say too, what was kind of cool is about a few years ago, they sent out a survey. It's like what keeps you up at night as a leader in the mold making business, and they actually the number one thing that came back was workforce development. One of the top things. And so at that time, I joined the board of directors, and because I really enjoyed it and I want to be more involved. So we met with the leadership team, and we put together a agenda, and it was unbelievable that all the things that were concerns of shop owners in our organization, we dealt with. We had speakers and again, different mentor groups and things that were happening. And actually, this is where this mentoring came out of. It spun out of this. And so, yeah, being a part of a organization, yeah, you have to put yourself out there, but it sure does deliver. If you give it a little bit of effort, you're going to get 10 times back of what you put into it. So yeah, I would recommend anybody, not only the AMBA or any other association that you might be involved in your area, just go ahead and
just
jump
get
out
involved.